Welcome to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. This is the big conversation. It's the great debate, but only if you join in. That's why, above all, I need your telephone calls on 44208-601-4555. You call us, we'll call you back. Establish a clear line. And remember, if you get on the television with me, the volume on your television set has to be down at 0, or I'll have to press quickly on because no one will understand either of us. You can also SMS the show on 447800008066, or you can email me at comment@presstv.co.uk. Now, colourful radio listeners have joined us for this show, and they are most welcome. But they should know that those numbers and contact details are for this show only. Tonight, we're talking about Syria, Yemen, the US and Russia. And of course, I'll be expressing my views. They're not anyone else's views, necessarily. They're certainly not views that I hold because anyone asked me to, told me to, paid me to, or any other reason than that they are genuinely my views. I say what I mean what I say, and if you say and mean something different, then your call is especially welcome. We're asking about Syria, who is inspiring the so-called militants who are laying waste wherever they can to the holy and inspired land of Syria. I ask because the situation has become truly ghastly. As the military and political tide has turned against these militants, their behaviour just has gotten more and more atrocious. They've gone from cutting open people's chests and eating their hearts and lungs and filming themselves doing it, putting it up on the internet, imagining that it's an attractive look, I suppose, to the wholesale desecration of holy sites that you would have thought would have required the respect of anyone who called themselves a Muslim. They have attacked shrines, they have manhandled the bones even of companions of the Prophet himself. A man who had kissed the cheek of the Prophet had his bones manhandled and tossed around in a shrine by these very people. Not to mention the priests and even bishops that they have murdered, including by beheading, by bread knives. And the latest of the atrocities was committed against Kurdish people in Syria, where a massacre of Kurdish people who opposed them took place just in the last 7 days. So, who is inspiring these people? What is inspiring these people? What conceivable, possible justification for their conduct can there be? Of course, the Syrian people have paid a very, very high price for this. But this much I'm certain of. No one in the world will ever want to follow the path of these extremist fanatics. They have reached and passed now their high water mark. They have terrified the vast majority of Muslims of all kinds. They have terrified the vast majority, if not every single Christian in the Arab world. They have terrified every civilized person of any faith everywhere in the world. What's keeping them going? You tell me. In Yemen, the United States has launched another series of drone attacks, killing a large number of people that they say are Al-Qaeda militants. How they know that, I don't know. How they can be sure that these drone attacks are not going to yield still further extremism, I'm absolutely certain that it will. Yemen is in lockdown. The United States has closed its embassy, so has the British in Yemen. And the United States may keep many of its embassies in the Arab Middle East closed for a month or more. What's going on? What does the US want from Yemen? What can Yemen do to get the United States off its case? I'll be asking that question too in the course of this program. The US-Russia relationship has reached a recent new low, as the Russian government awarded a year of freedom for Edward Snowden, the whistleblower who has revealed the sheer scale, the sheer Everestian scale of US-UK spying on the world, at the same time as Bradley Manning was given 130 years penal servitude in solitary confinement for telling the American people the truth about what their government was doing in their name and with their taxes. Then relations between the US and Russia have moved back into Cold War territory, with the US President Barack Obama cancelling talks with President Putin in a kind of childish, churlish huff. He will, however, have to go to St. Petersburg, as they call it, in September for the G20 meeting, and he will have to face President Putin then. So I'm not sure exactly what has been achieved by this act of churlishness. It is, though, obviously a measure of how damaging to the reputation of the United States the revelations of Edward Snowden have been. Exactly how damaging you think they have been, I'd like to know. So these are the three subjects that we are talking about. As I said, they are my views. They may or may not be yours. If they're not, your call will be prioritized. So call me, write to me on email, or text me over the course of the next 55 minutes or so. This is actually the 1000th show that I have presented on radio and on television. 75% of those have been live broadcasts. Forgive me, it's just a milestone that's of some importance to me. 1,000 shows ain't bad. Some of them have been good. I'm sure that this one will be too. But that depends on you. I need your calls. So we're talking about the fanatics in Syria. We're talking about the fanatics bombing Yemen, the ones in the Stars and Stripes. And we're talking about the relationship between the Stars and Stripes and Russia, which under President Putin, in my view, has returned to be a force in the world, a force of dignity and a force of counterbalance. Because, of course, the unipolar world, which we were left with after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the presidency of the drunken lunatic Yeltsin, was a very dangerous and unstable world indeed. It's still dangerous and it's still unstable, but at least new players are on the chessboard, and the United States does not have the world to play with as it sees fit. And I believe that Russia, in giving sanctuary to Edward Snowden, has performed a signal service to the world. Snowden's revelations are the most significant in my lifetime, which has been a long one. They are the most significant because they show that that security state that we thought existed was merely the tip of the iceberg. We now know that these people have the ambition and the technology to listen to anybody, anywhere, anytime. That's what they said themselves in writing, from GCHQ to the National Security Agency in the United States. We now know, thanks to Snowden, that Britain is renting itself out to the United States, to a foreign country, without Parliament knowing about it, without the British people knowing about it, and very cheaply too. £100 million is very cheap to rent out your entire country, to prostitute yourself to a foreign country for 100 million. My goodness, how cheap has Britain become? A Britannia which once ruled the waves is now plundering the airwaves and the microwaves on behalf and in the service of a foreign power. And we thought that it was just the Blair-Bush relationship that was so obscenely close. In fact, ever since Blair, the relationship on a security level between Britain and the United States has grown ever deeper. And it's a paid relationship. And I think I don't have to spell out on the day that many Muslims are celebrating Eid and many others preparing to do so. I don't have to spell out the name for people who rent themselves out to other people. But how significant do you think Snowden's revelations have been? Because I've got my views. This program is about you expressing yours. The Syrian question has preoccupied me for a very long time, as you know. It's not that I'm a lover of the government or even the system of government in Syria. I'm not a lover of either. It's not that I don't think that there needs to be a transition to democratic change in Syria. I absolutely believe that and have believed that for a very long time. Indeed, I advised the Syrian president after the fall, the day after the fall of the dictator of Tunisia, Ben Ali, that he should call a free and fair presidential election, and moreover opined that he'd probably win it and then would be the only democratically elected leader in any Arab country. I wish that he had taken my advice. But of this I am sure: the kind of people who have metastasized in control of the so-called revolution in Syria are not people that I want to see in charge anywhere. And not just me. The vast majority of Syrians, I can assure you, now feel exactly the same. The US, UK, French, Saudi and Qatari attempt to overthrow the government in Damascus has clearly failed, but the obscenity continues. And Jamal from Bedford in England wants to talk about that very subject. Jamal, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Mr. Galloway.
You're welcome.
Right. Anyway, Eid Mubarak to you and to the Press TV.
Thank you so much. Eid Mubarak to you too.
Thank you. I spoke to you 3 weeks ago, Mr. Galloway.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I'm Holloway, actually, my second name.
Oh, wow. Maybe we're
so
related.
If you take the G, you replace the G.
Maybe we're related. Go ahead, sir.
Just replace Right. Where can I start? The Syria people and the government don't deserve this disaster, actually.
No.
So what I'm saying, please, Iran and Russia, don't give up. Stand by the government, please.
I'm certain that the battle for Syria has decisively turned, Jamal, and I'm certain that on the political and the military level, these fanatic extremist militants have been defeated. But of course, they retain the capacity to shed a lot of blood, and that's exactly what they're continuing to do.
Exactly, yeah. Assad never done any wrong before. He never dug mass graves. It all started with the offspring, actually, which made the West just jump in, you know.
Well, they've tried to hijack the Arab Revolution, which arose in Tunisia first of all, then in Egypt. They've tried to climb on the back of this tiger and lead it in a direction that's not damaging to them, but damaging to the people that the revolutions are supposed to free. Jamal, thanks for the call. Look, I'm going to press on because we're having some delays in the line. Let me take the next call, which is Adam in London. Adam, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, George. Good evening to you, and happy Eid Mubarak.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
To you.
Thank you. Go ahead,
it's
sir.
Unfortunate, our brothers and sisters in some parts of the Middle East are suffering out of the injustice and oppression from the foreign or the so-called international world or the purveyors of democracy. You see, now America is running after its own shadow. If we will remember the way they fought the Russians, the tactics they used, the dirty tactics they used to fight the Russians in Afghanistan, which backfired on their own faces, is now the same thing that they are doing in Syria.
Well, the CIA, Adam, I don't know if you saw the CIA report today, which said that if the regime in Damascus were to fall, then Syria, under the control of Al-Qaeda, would be the biggest threat in the world to United States interests. Well, why have they been giving them guns and money and political and diplomatic support all this time, if that's the case? I mean, that's the very definition of national masochism.
Yes, they haven't learnt their lessons. You see, lack of the knowledge of God, lack of the knowledge of God is the beginning of stupidity.
Yes,
they think they are very clever,
good.
but they are not clever. Look at what happened in Libya. They sponsored everything in Libya. The person that cried for the rain to fall, it ended up falling on him. They killed him. They did not spare his life. They killed him. And what is now happening in Syria? The trip over is going to Yemen. Now you are running away saying that, the areas are not secured for our nationals to be there. Meanwhile, you have sponsored terrorists. You have exported terrorists into that area.
Yeah.
So what are they talking about? Now the British government is saying that there are some Muslim boys who are going to Syria to fight oppression. Those boys will come back and they'll be on the radar to be terrorists. And the next time you hear is London Underground. Who did that? It is Mr. What is his name? The Foreign Secretary and Mr. Cameron, who sponsored those boys to go to Syria, to go and fight for their interests, to come here and kill innocent British citizens. That is the same thing happening in America. Meanwhile, if they go there, what they do, they don't tell people that this is what we are doing for the interest of our people, which of course is not the entire nationals in the United States of America who are going to benefit, but the few selfish individuals, the only 0.9%, the rich individuals in America and in Britain and the so-called advanced world are benefiting from the blood. Mr. Tony Blair benefited from that blood. That is what they are doing now. It's not good for the Western to sponsor terrorists in Syria, sponsor terrorists in Yemen, sponsor terrorists in Libya, and now they are trying to export it everywhere.
And of course, it will be re-imported into our own countries. And we will end up with our own blood being shed in our own cities by people that we sponsored to go and shed blood in other people's cities and other people's countries. It is, Adam, close to a policy of absolute insanity. And I mean that. I have been in politics for more than 40 years. I have never known a policy so insane, so absolutely bereft of any national interest ever followed by any British government. And that's why I look back to the day in Parliament when I asked David Cameron, you may have seen it, I asked him if he would explain to the House the key differences between the Al-Qaeda we were planning to kill in Mali and the Al-Qaeda we were arming and financing in Syria. He had no answer except to accuse me of being on the side of Arab dictators. Anyone who saw the picture of David Cameron traipsing up Downing Street with the so-called King of Bahrain, an absolute dictator, only yesterday would realize how foolish and insufficient that answer to me was. We're asking, Adam, who inspires these people? Who inspires these militants? What inspires these militants? I want to hear from people about that. Thanks for the call. My number is 44208-601-4555. Mohammed's on the line from South Wales on Syria on this very question. Mohammed, welcome to the show.
Good evening to you. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, sir.
And Eid Mubarak to all your viewers as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Basically, again, we see these terrorists, right? I don't call them jihadi fighters or freedom fighters. They are nothing but the terrorists paid by Saudi and Qatar. And the Saudi government call themselves the Islamic Republic, right? Okay? The head of the Islamic world or Islamic Ummah. That's what they like to be known. But they are the biggest terrorists funding all these jihadis in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and all over the world. Saudi and Qatar are our worst enemy of the Muslim world at this present moment. The Israelis don't need to do anything. America doesn't need to do anything. They are doing the dirty work for them.
And
right?
they hate each other, of course.
Of course, yes.
Saudi Arabia and Qatar are arch enemies and hate each other.
Yes, but their aims are exactly the same: to divide the Muslim world, rule the way they want, and promote their Wahhabism.
And stay in power. That's their number one policy. Stay in power themselves, so they can continue to loot the wealth which God gave to the Arabs, all the Arabs.
My other point is, George, right? Are you still there?
Yes, Mohammed, go ahead.
Sorry. My other point is Snowden, right? Putin, I really bow my hat to him. He done a very good job giving him a sanctuary in Russia. I would like to see America now. They are straight away quick enough to put sanction on Iran and any other Muslim world. Why aren't they doing anything with Russia? Because they know they can't bully Russia around.
Exactly.
Right?
Well, they can't bully Russia and they can't bully China. And every day from now on, they'll be less able to do so. But they can't actually bully Iran either. The new president of Iran has made a very dignified and correct approach to these countries, asking them to drop the language and sanctions and all the rest. And in return, then Iran can have civilized relations on an equitable basis with all of these countries. But it will not be on the basis of Iran bowing its knee to the United States or the United Kingdom. David Cameron sent a letter of, you could say, congratulations to the new president of Iran. I hope it means a beginning of a change of direction in relations between Britain and Iran. And I'm sure that the Iranians will respond in kind. We must hope, of course, that it's the beginning of the end of a period of absolute hostility between the Western countries and Iran. Here's my number, 44208-601-4555. Aidan is in London. He's calling up about Syria on this question of who inspires the militants. Aidan, welcome back. Well, Aidan, we have lost. He and I have had some celebrated spats on the air over the last few months on this subject and others. Let's hope we manage to reconnect the line to Aidan. We're talking about who's inspiring these militants. We're talking about what the US wants from Yemen. What exactly has Yemen done to deserve the blizzard of ordnance regularly now visited upon the country via drone? And why did the United States support the development of the very Al-Qaeda forces they say they are now terrified of in Yemen? So terrified they've closed their embassy. It's not a small thing, you know, for Britain and America to close its embassy in an important Arab country, and in this case of the United States, in tens of countries around the world. Now closed for the duration, perhaps a month, the United States will keep its embassy closed. What's going on? What's it all about? Is it connected to Edward Snowden, the whistleblower now ensconced safely at last in Russia, which has caused the United States such anger that the President of the United States has cancelled his forthcoming talks with the President of Russia, though he will have to deal with the President of Russia, who isn't going away anytime soon. So, my telephone numbers are there on the screen, and we need your calls, especially. You call us, we'll call you back, we'll establish a clear line, and hopefully have a conversation, if not a debate. And you can SMS and you can text me also. This is my 1000th show as a presenter. 75% of those at least have been live shows. I like live television. I like live radio because it's on the edge, and I don't know what you're going to say next. I'm not even sure what I'm going to say next, except this: I'll be back in a few minutes, God willing. Welcome back to Comment with me, George Galloway, here on Press TV, still the voice of the voiceless. It's the big conversation. It's the great debate. But it can only be a debate if you join in. That's why I need your calls, your texts, your SMS, your emails. We're discussing this evening who exactly is inspiring these fanatics, these so-called militants in Syria, to attack holy shrines, to cut the heads of holy people, to terrorize and terrify the people of Syria and indeed the world so much that everyone is running away from them at a very great rate of knots. Religious extremism, as expressed in the kind of horrors that we have seen in Syria, has terrified the people of Syria out of their wits and into the arms of the government of Syria, which now, according to a recent poll conducted by United Nations personnel, has the support of more than 70% of the people of Syria. Who would have thought that after a Western-sponsored war of more than 2 years in duration, the Syrian government would end up much more popular at the end of the war than it was at the beginning. So who's inspiring this and why? And what does the US want from Yemen? Why are the United States showering the people of Yemen with drone attacks? And why are they concerned about an Al-Qaeda threat in Yemen that they themselves have helped to build and buttress? And exactly how damaging is the work of Edward Snowden, the whistleblower to the United States? What lies behind the churlish decision of President Obama to boycott his forthcoming discussions with President Putin of Russia? Robert is on the line from Peterhead on the US-Russian track, and if I remember correctly, Robert is a schoolboy, the wisest schoolboy we've ever had on this television program. Robert, is it you?
Yes, it is, George.
How wonderful. Please, I hope you're going to come and see me in Aberdeen in November. I'm giving a talk in the concert hall there.
God willing. Thank you for letting me get in contact with you again, and Eid Mubarak to the Press TV staff and the viewers tonight.
How wonderful. Go ahead, Robert.
A lot of things have happened in the last 5 months, like me turning 14 2 months ago. But
so you were 13 the last time you graced these airwaves, and now you're all of 14. Robert, go ahead.
But things have also changed for the worse. And before I get onto the subject of US-Russia relations, I would like to say I've been following the releases of information kept hidden from the public eye since the release of the video which shows the United States Air Force brutally massacring innocent civilians in Iraq from an Apache gunship. And I would like to leave my personal condolences to the family of Bradley Manning and his illegal imprisonment. Now, I believe Edward Snowden did the right thing, and I think President Obama and the American government are acting like small and spoiled children, whining until they get what they want. And I'd like to thank Vladimir Putin for making the right choice and giving sanctuary to Mr. Snowden. And I obviously feel this way because, you know, I'm a teenager. I spend a lot of time on the internet. But the fact that every email I send and every phone call I received can be monitored 24/7 with no warrant and no judicial ruling has me frightened. How long before we have police raiding our homes just because we spoke out? How long before we start seeing cameras on every street? And Mr. Snowden, if you're watching this, know that you're not alone. And if they silence you, there will be millions, hundreds of millions, more who will willingly take your place and stand up for freedom and stand up for justice.
Robert, I'm knocked out as ever by your eloquence, by your wisdom, by the strength of your moral position and moral courage. And I promise you this, Mr. Snowden will hear what you had to say. I'll make sure that he does. Robert, in Peterhead, in the northeast of Scotland, I hope you and your family will come to my one-man show in the concert hall in Aberdeen in November. I'm touring Aberdeen, Glasgow and Dundee in the course of November. Thanks for that, Robert. Fauzia's on the line from Kenya, and I want to hear what Fauzia has to say. Remember my number, 44208-601-4555. Fauzia, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Very nice to hear from you. I'm going into Africa myself. I'll be talking in Nigeria quite shortly. I hope to make it to Kenya one day, but until I do, let me hear your point of view. Give it to me.
Okay, you're welcome to Africa, and I would also love to welcome you in Kenya. And I wish everyone who's there Eid Min al-Eidin, inshallah. I wanted to talk about what the U.S. really wants from Yemen.
Yeah.
Yemen is really a strong Islamic nation, and I really feel sad, and I'm so touched and moved that so many Muslims have to lose their life with no particular reason, and it really hurts a lot that nobody, like if it were an American that is dying, like just the normal Americans, someone goes and, kills them, it would be a big thing, and everyone would be complaining, and it would be all over the world, and there would be so many human activists, going around and, talking about it all the time. But now, since it's Muslims, nobody cares, and it really hurts a lot. Like, they're so up to killing Muslims. I don't know what's wrong with them, but I greatly disagree with it. I'm back here in Kenya, but there's nothing I can do much about it. But all we can do is, hold hands and let them give us a reason. One of the reasons why they shut down their embassies, I guess, they're just so, they're afraid that something wrong can be done to their people, to those white guys there. So they're protecting them. That's why they've shut down. But it's wrong to shut down all their embassies in the Middle East, especially in Sudan. Sudan is just a neighbor country to Kenya. They're not involved in any way whatsoever in this kind of war. But it's really touching and sad that they have killed so many Muslims with no reason. Actually, they've killed so many innocent, small kids. Those are children. Those are innocent souls. They don't even know why they're involved in this. America should give us a reason why they're doing this to Yemen.
MashaAllah, what a wonderful call, Fauzia. And I hope that you will call us regularly. And I take my hat off to you and all of our viewers and listeners in Africa. Fauzia from Kenya is followed by our old friend Ari from New York on Syria. Ari, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Mr. Galloway. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Go ahead, sir.
First, if I could just comment of the previous about the attack on Yemen.
Yeah.
The woman, I'll quote her. She said, "I don't know what's wrong with them. Like, what's wrong with the U.S. that it sends over to kill people in Yemen."
Yeah.
First of all, I obviously have to say to the innocent people that die, it is horrible and very bad, and we need to improve it. But you need to know why this is happening. The world knows that there is a conflict between Islamic extremists who believe in jihad, that want to eliminate America and everything America stands for, freedom of choice, freedom of religion, freedom of all the rights and everything.
Why is the U.S. Ari, let's cut to the chase. The question is, why are you so terrified of these kind of people in Yemen, yet your country is arming and financing these very, very same people in Syria? That's the question. Go ahead.
There is zero evidence whatsoever that America is arming and militarizing al-Nusra or extremists. America has come out time and again to say that they will not arm the Islamic extremists, only moderate Syrians that really want to Syria.
All right, Ari, let me put the question in a different way. Why are America's puppets in the Persian Gulf, Saudi Arabia and Qatar arming and financing Al-Qaeda in Syria? Why?
I don't see them as American puppets. I see them as independent rulers.
They're independent. Qatar is independent. Qatar is a petrol station in which the United States has its biggest military base on the earth. Are you really telling me that Qatar is arming Al-Qaeda in Syria against the wishes of the United States? Do you really expect the viewers to believe that?
I totally, yes, that is what they should believe. You can't argue that because Iran sells India oil, it's going to dictate the foreign policy of India.
Are you really saying, Ari, that the United States does not dictate the foreign policy of a gas station masquerading as a country, and that despite having its biggest base in the world in Qatar, the United States is not influencing Qatar's decision to arm and fund Al-Qaeda in Syria? Do you really expect us to believe that?
Influence is a very big and vague word. I don't think America has the power to dictate to Qatar or Saudi Arabia.
Please, Ari, this is insulting. You're insulting our intelligence. You're insulting your own intelligence by pretending that the United States is not able to stop Qatar from giving guns and money to Al-Qaeda in Syria. Please, I ask you for the third time, why are they doing it, Ari?
Any government official, any U.S. government official that supports the concept of militarizing the Islamic extremists in Syria, every government official that ever talked about Syria mentioned they want a moderate Syria and that they're against Islamic extremists.
But their allies.
Al-Nusra.
But look, Ari, Al-Qaeda has become overwhelmingly the power in the Syrian opposition. It has become so because Saudi Arabia, Qatar and Turkey is financing and arming it. All three of these countries are the closest of American allies, and two of them are puppets. Are you really expecting us to believe that all of this is a coincidence and the United States doesn't want it to happen?
Why is the U.S. not militarizing them? You're saying that the U.S.
Because they're allowing their friends to do it. Because they can't sell to the U.S. public that they themselves are building up Al-Qaeda in Syria, for the obvious reason that Al-Qaeda murdered thousands of Americans just a decade or so ago. So they're puppets in the Persian Gulf, and their close ally in Turkey is doing it on their behalf. Everyone can see it, Ari, and you have let yourself down by denying it on this show this evening. Enough. Let's go to the north of Ireland and talk to Saeed, who's just hung up. So I'm going to move on to the next show. I'm sorry if I seemed so angry at Ari, but it hurts me when intelligent people insult my intelligence and insult your intelligence. It hurts me because, well, it's insulting. It would be better to have an honest debate on that. Let's stay in the United States and talk to Omar. I think he's in Louisiana on Syria. Let's go and talk to him. Omar in Louisiana, welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Eid Mubarak, Mr. Galloway.
Walaikum salam. Eid Mubarak to you, Omar, in Louisiana. First time ever to talk to Louisiana. Go on.
Thank you, sir. I just wanted to say this is not going to end, unfortunately. We see that what the Saudis or the Gulf states are now doing in Syria, or have been doing, for the last 3 or 4 years in Syria, as in the Middle East as a whole in the past several decades. They're now doing, unfortunately, in Egypt. You can see that they gave a $12 billion infusion of cash. Biggest sum of money. Even the West could not, or Egypt's main supporters, military supporters, could not give that type of cash infusion that we saw that was given from the Gulf states to Egypt to topple the Morsi government.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's been just terrible bloodshed. In my opinion, sir, I think that the quickest and easiest solution is this, and as I witnessed this firsthand in Iraq, and now I'm watching my brothers and sisters in Iran becoming terribly affected by taking the Iranian oil off the market, I suggest that we do what we can to take Saudi and Gulf state oil off the market. Have them suffer the same way. I know I have just not that long ago been to Saudi Arabia, and I can tell you the people there are aching for a change. So let's not blame the Saudi people or the Gulf state people. The majority of them want change. Unfortunately, with the influx of arms, heavy weapons from supporting nations, the military bases there, the people are suppressed. The only way to get this fixed is to somehow take that oil off the market. Unfortunately, this will have a dramatic effect, but I think it's to an endemic problem.
Well, look, Omar, you've touched on something that is a very important preoccupation of mine too. It's vitally important that the viewers around the world watching this program do not blame the people of what's called Saudi Arabia and these other Persian Gulf states. Does not blame the people. These people themselves are under the heel of a dictatorship. In some cases, in Qatar and in some other Persian Gulf countries, it may be that they sleep at least in a feather bed. The Saudi people do not sleep in a feather bed. Unemployment amongst people in Saudi Arabia is vaulting and rising at an extreme, alarming rate. Poverty exists and stalks the land in Saudi Arabia, unbelievably, given the wealth, the bounty that God gave to that country. The public services have been privatized and in some cases eliminated. People are going to university, but they come out of that university intellectually all dressed up with nowhere to go. The 40,000 princes of the so-called House of Saud are beginning now to divide amongst themselves. And people are beginning to abandon the ship that is Saudi Arabia. The day will come when the Arab Revolution, which the regime in Riyadh has spent so much money seeking to first stop, and having failed to stop it, pervert it, divert it anywhere but their own streets. The day will come when that revolution will envelop them also. Of that, I am absolutely certain. Omar in Louisiana, thanks for a wonderful call from Louisiana to Milton Keynes, of course, and to talk up to David about the desecrated shrine of the Prophet's granddaughter in Syria. David, welcome to the show.
Yes, George Galloway.
Yes, sir.
The only elephant, the only mosquito that's making elephant uncomfortable in this world. George, congratulations.
I love you. Thank you.
This is your old friend David Kankambo, the President, Founder, Africa Youth for Progress.
Wonderful. Great, David.
Eid Mubarak, George.
Eid Mubarak to you, brother. I'm going to Nigeria soon. We must talk.
Yes, I'm from Ghana, but definitely, George, I'm taking you to Ghana. Get ready for that.
Inshallah.
What I would like to say is that people like Ray that you were talking with,
Ari,
don't spend your time on him, George, because the world knows how the whole thing is going. We know about Saddam Hussein. We know about what happened to Gaddafi and all that America is doing around the world. We know all about them. So I think sometimes don't spend your time on these people like that, because you can't help them. They are block brain. They don't know what is happening in the world. So you just leave them, George.
Okay, brother.
Now, I believe very strongly, George Galloway, the world is in danger of what I call the normal human freedom. Because in some years ago, we believed that the Soviet Union with the communism had a line of suppressing freedom of speech. But it is rather unbelievable that history now is unbelievable that the so-called democracy is using the same democratic expression to suppress freedom of speech. George Galloway, I will vote for you to become president of the new world. Because
how wonderful. Listen, David, you've touched on something really important, and you and I need to talk about Ghana. But you've touched on something really important. It's come to something that you cannot watch this show tonight on British television. You have to watch it on your app, on your phone, on your computer, online, or on YouTube, or wherever. Because the British government, which has spent decades telling us how freedom and liberty were its cornerstones, has taken Press TV off mainstream television here in Britain. David, I've got to press on, but I hope we talk again. Zahra is on the line from Tehran on Syria. Zahra, welcome.
Hello.
Yes, welcome. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, George.
Alaikum salam. Go ahead.
Eid Mubarak to you and all the people in the Press TV.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment about what inspires these terrorists.
Yes.
In Syria and all these countries.
Yes.
I think it's basically the ignorant Muslim Wahhabi priests who pass these fatwas, and they are the ones who cause these people to think that shrines are much more dangerous, of holy people are more dangerous for the Islamic world than Israel, and Israel is their friend. And I'm sure these Wahhabi priests are being paid in petrodollars for these fatwas. The terrorists too are ignorant mercenaries. And I think the answer to this entire thing is an intellectual uprising of all independent-minded Muslims to expose this, what we call in Tehran, the Hebrew, Western, and Arabic nexus against the Muslim world.
Well, I don't see it that way. I don't think that Hebrews have anything per se to do with it. Zionists undoubtedly are involved and are profiting from it. But they're not really required, are they? I mean, the Muslim world doesn't actually require Zionists or even Westerners to tear the Muslim world apart, because a section of the Muslim world is more than happy and ready to do it itself. So on this Eid day for many Muslims, and on the eve of the Eid for the others, let me be clear. There is only one God, there is only one Quran, there is only one Islam. And if Muslims want to endlessly divide themselves, differentiate themselves from each other, and murder each other in the name of those differentiations, the only beneficiaries will be the Zionists and the Western powers who want to plunder and loot the Muslim world. It's really not rocket science. And as you're from Tehran, let me finish on that subject with a quote from the late Ayatollah Khomeini. As long as the Muslims, he said, are bickering about whether hands should be crossed or kept at the side, those who hate Islam are preparing to cut off the arms of all of you. It's a very powerful metaphor. It's absolutely true. And God willing, I'll be back here again next week.
Hello, just comment your name and a Facebook account number. And just make sure that your television volume's set to 0. 0, 0. Can you spell your name for me? Yeah, I know. You'll be directly put through just your phone number and then we'll call you back. Comment. And then can I have your telephone number? Okay, so I'll comment after this.